All right. Hello, everybody. Today I will be talking about the whole healing process. So the whole healing process about when it seems like nothing's working. Hello, Angeliki. Sometimes it just feels impossible to kind of keep on keeping on. And this kind of was stemmed from a few clients earlier this week that I had in my private practice where they're struggling with a million things. They have, seriously, laundry lists of different symptoms and diagnoses, and it's just really hard to stay the course. And so I thought I'd put together some keys to stay the course with thyroid and hormone imbalance and, other things that you might be dealing with as well, like gut health and maybe some infection or mold issues or anything like that. So this will apply to all of that, kind of the idea of like, how do we keep on keeping on? All right. So healing is not linear. Number one, healing is just not linear. And that's why this process is so hard. It's frustrating and we want things to happen yesterday, especially when we finally decide to jump in on a program, work with professionals who understand what's going on, and they're trying to get, help you get back on board and get you in check with your symptoms. It feels like, okay, now I got the right medicines, I should be feeling better. And it's a month down the road and we're still not really that much better. It gets frustrating. And then there's sort of an anxiety piece that comes into that where we're like, okay, we'll probably never get better. This will never work. This is another thing I spent money on and I'll never get better. That's where we have to dig deeper and kind of work up our like mental resilience to dealing with this stuff, because it is hard. And some of us have struggled with things like this for, decades, right? It's not usually just like a 1-year battle. It's like way more than that and really a lot more frustrating than that. So often this is not linear. Like I said, it's more like a zigzag and up and down, a bumpy road. So thyroid and hormone healing doesn't really follow, unfortunately, a straight path. Most people expect kind of a steady climb toward better energy, weight loss, and mood, but typically the healing comes in waves, kind of fits and starts. And there might be some flare-ups sometimes. Symptoms might return. You might get a plateau, whether it be in healing or in weight loss or whatever. Sustainable changes will take root, but it just takes a while to get there, right? We have to go through the ups and downs, and that's the hardest part. So the reason that this happens is that even though everything all works together, we have been treated for so long as if we don't all work together. All these symptoms and hormones and things don't work together. And so we've been compartmentalized. So we're sort of in this mindset still that, okay, well, I'm working on my thyroid hormone because that's what I saw off on my labs. And then maybe the other parts aren't really being dealt with, like your gut health, liver health, adrenals, and that kind of thing. So that's why everything has to work together. And that's why sometimes it can take time to recalibrate and to get all that stuff balanced. It's hard to know when like there was a start and a stop for my own experience, but definitely I would say when I figured out that it was more than just taking Synthroid for me, when I finally got a diagnosis 15 years later of struggling, I feel like it took 3 years to feel like a normal human again, or just to feel like I was normal at all. And that's not to say there weren't improvements along the way. It just isn't where hadn't got to that part of where, yes, okay, I can do this. This feels good. I know what I'm supposed to do now. I know how to reach out to readjust or whatever. That's where I got comfortable with it. Everybody's different for sure. And I see people in this program where things and healing happen a lot faster than that. But I was doing it all by myself, okay? And you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. And if you're here, you're not. So that's a really good thing. So when you are supporting your thyroid function, as an example, you have to find out and see and support what's going on with your adrenals and your insulin and your sex hormones and your gut and your liver, right? You have to prioritize kind of all of that. We have to have some foundational repair before things like weight loss happen. Everybody's so frustrated after a month and they're saying, why haven't I lost weight? I can't lose weight. My weight won't budge. Meanwhile, you have 3 or 4 autoimmune conditions and other things and other symptoms that are popping up. We have to set that foundation before anything superficial will happen, because that process just in the weight loss factor, getting into your fat stores is physiologically so energy dependent. And most people, when they're struggling like this, they don't have energy to give, right? There's no actual energy on the outside, but internally, there's no energy to be able to get rid of that fat. And so that is why that's not a priority. We need to get that foundational health in check. So if you're someone who is like starting to eat better, you're starting to sleep more, but you're not losing weight for 2 months, meanwhile, you have all these digestive issues, you are, have like a cycle that's becoming more regular. Maybe you're starting to have less PMS symptoms. Maybe you have more reliable cycles and you kind of know what to expect from it. Those are also signs of healing. When you have less bloating, or you don't have acid reflux anymore, or you have a regular cycle. Those are things that are signs of healing, and you need to grab onto those and believe that that is a result of what you are doing with everything else. Okay, so the way that you kind of can figure this out and keep track of it, and so you can revisit it, because your mind will come up and, search for the negative. Oh, I'm not losing weight. I'm still tired, that kind of thing. So you need to track your weekly wins outside of the scale, okay? You need to look at your energy. How is your mood? Do you feel less irritable? Do you feel like you are less likely to, go off on someone at work? Or do people bother you less? Do you have better digestion where you can look at something without causing yourself to be bloated? Do you have less joint pain? Does when you go for a walk, does that movement feel better to you in your body? So you kind of have to look at those as little milestones, and those are all wins, right? And they may kind of fluctuate over time, but overall, if you look at over 90 days, 120 days, something like that, you're going to see some ups and downs, but they're all going to be going in the up direction. Overall, that will be the average it out. If you average it out, it will be in the improving category. So look at those little things as checkpoints each week, and don't think of them as judgments. It just is what it is, and it's part of the process. What I recommend people do in my programs is each week, once a week, I always say Sunday nights, for whatever reason, that's where it lands for me. Just jot down all the symptoms, even if it's just a bullet point list of all of your symptoms. And then you know what you're doing to make changes during the week. You can look back and you can see there's a lot of improvements that have been happening. And sometimes you'll go a month or two down the road. Other people might notice some improvements, but you won't until you look back and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that I had symptom X, Y, and Z. Okay, so that is really important to do, rather than just say, okay, I didn't lose 5 pounds this month. I am not improving. This sucks. None of my efforts are working. It's not worth it. I spent more money again. I spent all this time. I've been stressing about it. I've been being perfect with my diet and my exercise. Instead of doing that, look at those other things, the non kind of scale victories, as they call them. Those are very important. All right, any questions, or does anybody have any thoughts on that, or that experience where maybe you felt this way? I hope this resonates. I think it does, based on, I've been there. I've been at this same place, sometimes still get there, still get in that headspace, and it's because this is hard. And just so you know, it's not really ever done. You're always going to have to stay on track with things. I don't know anybody, for anything really, where you just, get to that point and you never have to, maintain anything, right? So let's look at what's getting better behind the scenes. Let's get into that a little bit deeper. So not all healing is going to be visible, right? Not everybody's going to look at you and go, oh, looks like your thyroid's better. Looks like you're feeling so much better with your thyroid. When your body is depleted from chronic stress, we've talked about that numerous times, but when you have chronic stress and inflammation, your thyroid is really sluggish. You have to start restoring those internal systems first. And that's what you're doing when you're changing your diet, when you're reducing your stress to balance out your cortisol. If you work a little more specifically on gut healing and gut lining repair, some of you, are doing liver detoxes or have done liver detoxes, not just colon cleanses, like actual liver detoxes. You're starting to restore those internal systems first, and that is going to help you heal faster, okay? So you'll notice, because you'll recover from stress or illness faster, you will be less bloated or constipated. You won't have as much blood sugar swings, the up and down, where you have cravings, irritability, insomnia, that kind of thing. That's going to start to improve. And you can go much longer between meals. You're not feeling like you have to eat every 2 hours or every hour for some people. And you're going to feel less tired and wired and just like a little bit more calm overall. And all of this matters because this is when people are about to give up, when things start to shift, and when they're just like gonna get over that precipice of really making changes. This is when people get frustrated and stop. So I'm telling you, keep on keeping on, okay? There's only an upside to keeping on, and there's all the downsides if you stop. You will feel worse, and you will keep getting worse if you stop. So just remember that. So some things to do is just like kind of take a weekly check on yourself, kind of with the journaling. Did you have fewer sugar cravings this past week? How's my sleep this past week? Am I sleeping deeper? Am I sleeping longer? Do you have a sleep tracker of some kind? You can kind of tell those parameters, like what's improved. And maybe is your mood better? Do you have fewer mood swings? Was your week of your cycle better mentally and physically? And if you want to, and it's like everybody says, I wish I would have done it, by taking progress photos, maybe once a week. And if you, again, look back months later, you're going to see major changes. Even if the scale doesn't drop down drastically, you will notice many changes. Okay. Any questions or thoughts on that? Okay. All right. Next thing. And sometimes I a little bit kind of hesitate in talking about this because I feel like it can be something that people get obsessive about, and I would say that would be myself. So I a little bit hesitate to say that. So, keep this in mind for your own personality, and if it's something that starts to drive you crazy, then don't do it. But look at the data over the drama of what you want things to be. So using like actual feedback, not just your emotion, to track your progress. And this is what I mean. So we can fluctuate with a lot of things throughout the day, including our feelings about what's going on. I mean, I can wake up in the morning and feel really good about how I feel for the day, and then something can tip me off in midday or something, and then I can start to just feel frustrated and get down on myself or get down with the process, and it can lead to just being discouraged and feeling like, oh, why even do this? I'm giving up. I mean, that can apply to kind of anything in life. But when it comes to your health, you need to try to be objective, stay grounded in what you're trying to do to make yourself feel better. So some kind of biofeedback things you can track and watch. And there's so many different ways you can do this, whether you have old school types of things like a thermometer, or you can use, an Oura ring or Apple Watch, things like that. There's all kinds of different ways you can do this, but look at your morning body temperature. Just that alone, if you are walking around thinking like, gosh, this new thyroid meds have really made a difference, like maybe they have, but I can't really tell. It's not made that much of a difference. When your body temperature starts to come up just a little bit, that's a sign that your thyroid is coming back on board, as well as your resting heart rate. And I know some of you maybe heard me say in the past that my resting heart rate used to be like 49, 51, but I always had worked out. So I honestly just thought that it was because I was in good shape. And even my anatomy and physiology lab teacher commented on how healthy my heart must be because it was such a low resting heart rate. And then I found, once I got optimized with my thyroid hormone, that it wasn't quite that low. It's still pretty low, but it's not quite that low, where it's now more in that 56, 57, maybe 59. If it gets up to 60, then I know that something's going down. I'm probably, catching a cold or something like that. But the point is once your resting heart rate comes up in a moderate way, that is another sign, in addition to body temperature, that things are starting to improve. So look at those things. Your energy curve throughout the day. If you wake up in the morning and feel like pretty energized, but then it just plummets at 3 p.m., that tells me you've got a blood sugar and cortisol problem. If you wake up from a 10-hour sleep and you feel like you've never been asleep, that tells me you got probably a cortisol and blood sugar problem. So if those things start to improve, you can see you're starting to get more balanced with that, just by, taking in all the things you can do with this program and the things we're teaching here on these trainings. You'll start to improve those things, but it takes a little time. It takes a minute. If you wake up and you are like, wow, I slept through the entire night. I didn't toss and turn. I didn't lie there wide awake, trying to count sheep or whatever. You are improving your health. Okay. People really, really want to get sleep. And when you start to get it, it's like awesome, right? It's a game changer. If your cravings and your satiety, meaning like after you eat something, you actually feel satisfied for several hours, that is when that starts to come on board. That's again that you have better balanced blood sugar, better hunger and satiety signals. And if you're not craving things all the time, you're probably got your blood sugar really in check. All right. So some tips and tricks for that. You can, just track something. You can start with one thing. You can do all the things, but track your sleep. Look at your energy. You can just give yourself a subjective scale on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 or whatever makes sense for you. How often are you going to the bathroom? Are you going once a day or twice a day, 3 times a day, 10 times a day? You want to go once or twice, or probably twice a day is where you want to try to get to. How's your mood? Do you feel really edgy, irritable, depressed, really anxious? What is it? Where's the mood? So you could track those little things. You could do, it doesn't have to be this elaborate journal. You can just do little tick marks. You can do, just jot down the words of kind of a code that you have for your journaling and your symptoms. Just reframe this kind of thought process that if you're not, getting to all the places that you want to be with your health, it's not failure. It's just feedback of what's going on. But then you have the tools, especially when you're working with people who understand this and are trying to help you with this, you will be able to change the pattern and then help you, keep making moves forward. So just track like 1 or 2 things consistently. Maybe add something here and there once a month or whatever. But just, there's no rule around it. There's no process specific that everybody needs to do. Just see what more is your concern, whether it's sleep or mood, and really just focus on that and see how that improves. And those little wins will help keep you motivated. It'll keep your goals in front of mind, and it'll kind of just be that reassurance that things are actually improving, even when they don't show up on the scale, or even when you're not waking up with this bounding of energy, things are improving. All right, and then the 4th thing to talk about with this, there's 5 keys. I think I mentioned that, but the 4th thing, and this is kind of hard, especially in the world of social media and things, but you got to stay in your own lane. Stay where you're at. Like keep yourself comparing to yourself, not to others. You can't compare like your phase 1 with someone else's phase 10. You can't just look at everything on social media because half of it or more is probably fake, right? So delete that stuff off your phone. Don't follow those people if it triggers you, right? You are on your own individual path. Okay, so just because someone saw really quick results with keto or fasting or carnivore or vegan or whatever, or some magical supplement, it doesn't mean it's right for you. And so when it isn't, which most times it doesn't work the same thing for everybody, things you always hear like, well, my mom took this or my sister did that, and it doesn't usually work the same for every single person. So if you're in this sort of figuring out stage, this is not the time to jump on those bandwagons or to compare yourself to people who are, further down the lane of, healing. So this comparison stuff fuels the self-doubt. It derails your nervous system. It gets you all amped up. Your stress hormones go out of whack. Your cortisol is going to be imbalanced again. This will stall the healing. It will keep your process kind of stuck and clunky. So get out of that comparison game as best as you can. So like I said, don't compare your phase 1, your beginning phase, or your middle phase to someone's end phase. After someone's already made it to the end and feeling phenomenal, that's not you, but it can be, and it will be if you keep on keeping on. So don't ever feel like you're behind, right? You're right where you're supposed to be. You're learning about your body, and the whole thing, the takeaway from this is you need to understand you're trying to learn things so that it becomes sustainable for you, because everybody's lives and schedules and health conditions are different. You can't do something in the way that someone else does. If you're working 12 hours a day and they're not working at all, you can't do the same things and take care of yourselves in the same way. So you will not get the same results. All right. You just cannot do that. So you need to look at where you're at and compare yourself to you and just keep moving forward with it. So, got to look at what's working for you and think of like little micro goals for each week. What do you kind of want to set for the week as your main focus? Are you going to get 3 strength training sessions in that week? Are you going to make sure you get your protein goal in each day that week? Or are you going to get your protein goal in for breakfast each day this week, or eat breakfast period each day this week? Those are the things you need to do. Each week, set those little micro goals that are specific to you and your needs. And, people in the program can help you determine that and help guide that with you, so that can help you move yourself forward a little bit faster, a little bit more efficiently. Okay, so does anybody have thoughts on that, or does anybody do that kind of thing already? And what feels helpful? Okay, I got oh, sorry. All the chats were covered up. I'm sorry. And being nicer is totally a symptom relief. It is. When people just don't feel quite as annoying, or you have a better response to things that are annoying or whatever, that's a good thing. Mental healing is real. It is no joke. It was one of my biggest factor was depression and anxiety. And I was so just confused because I had no reason to be depressed. And then how it's treated, I don't know. I was told by a neurologist that I was just hormonal. I was a woman, and that was just how it was supposed to be. Like, get used to it. That's kind of how things are treated, and it's really frustrating. So that mental healing is no joke, and it is connected to a dysfunctional thyroid. It really is. Yep, your cholesterol is improving, coming down with the addition of T3. So look at that. I mean, just eating real whole foods more often will start to bring cholesterol down into a healthy range. We don't need it to be too low, right? Contrary to what the ranges are now, but that is a sign that your liver is healing and able to handle, or it's not having to deal with so much inflammation in the body. That's what that's a sign of. You're reducing inflammation when your cholesterol comes down. Body temperature. I would have to take a sweater with me during the summer because I'd be too chilly in the AC, and this summer I don't have to do that. Yeah, isn't that crazy? I remember, this is so long ago. I was in high school track, and I remember being at track meet in the spring, and it was hot that day. It was like a really hot day in the spring, and I remember wearing a sweatshirt and sweatpants in between events because I was cold. But nobody thought there was anything wrong with my thyroid, not whatsoever. Yes, you can add something. Yeah, don't wholeheartedly trust AI either. Nope, do a little cross-checking of things that are important to you. For just like random silly things, probably not that big of a deal, but if you're looking at actual health things, yeah, don't just trust AI. it's a little scary out there, guys, with that. I know people selling AI meal plans as like diagnostic therapeutic meal plans just by doing Chat GPT or whatever, and it's pretty alarming. Okay, yeah, so you and Kristen, I think you meant like setting little goals maybe that you need to. And then Valerie, I try not to give myself goals because I get more anxiety if I don't make the goal. I get that. So even if it's like a little micro goal, like today I'm going to drink 40 ounces of water or whatever, like just in one day, and almost in a little way, start out by setting yourself up with things that you know you can do. Yep. It does. It just scrapes things. And like, especially if it goes to Wikipedia where people are just adding random information in there, that is kind of scary on that front. And even I've corrected it with some things. I'm like, are you sure? I don't think that happens I don't think that is really in, I don't know, B vitamins or whatever. And it will say, oh, you're right. And then it'll come back and correct itself. If you question it, do not rely on that. But yeah, keeping yourself into little micro goals that basically you set yourself up for success, rather than I'm going to do strength training 5 days a week and do an hour cardiovascular training alongside it every single day, and you feel like you have zero energy. That would not be the time to set up a goal like that. So just, make it realistic. I just said that dramatic one as an example of what not to do to set yourself up for failure before you even start. Okay. Key 5. Anchor your why. And this is hard. I think this is hard. And kind of just set yourself up around not being able to forget it, right? So we are motivated. Everybody has a different motivation to, achieve some kind of goal. And then I say goal as if we can really control all this health stuff. I mean, some things we can control, a lot of things we can't. But what I mean is, like, if energy is your biggest frustration with your health, that is your why. Like, that you want to have great energy, have vibrant energy, be able to do things with your kids, whatever it might be. That needs to act like kind of a compass to keep you pushing forward, even when the results are not resulting like you want them to, or like you think they should, even if they're slow, even if there's like hills and valleys with improvements, the ups and downs. You need to have kind of that support, not just information, that keeps you accountable, encouraged, and resilient in the way that you process these ups and downs. Because those are hard. You have to be mentally tough for that. And I'm not going to lie, there have been so many times in my life that I've been completely not mentally tough. So we need to make sure, sorry, someone came to the door to deliver, probably Amazon. So you need to make sure you have that why. So like, I want to wake up to have energy with my kids. I want to feel like I'm not just surviving. That was mine. I was like, I want to be able to thrive, not just survive. I even put it as a tagline in my book. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. So I even put that in as a tagline in my book, that I wanted to thrive, not just survive, barely just get by. Some people want to trust their body again because everything hasn't worked. No matter what we do, we have to figure out like what actually works for us. So those might be your whys. Everybody will have a different one. Really anchor into what that is. And then if you want to do the whole thing where you put sticky notes around, I have a friend who writes her things on her mirror in lipstick, vision boards, things like that. Even if it's a notebook where you have everything written down and you just kind of reassess things as you're journaling, joining some kind of group program where you have people that are like-minded, that healing process becomes actually a little more fun when people are sort of in it together and all have the same goals and they're encouraging each other. And then checking in with people within your program, you know, to see how things are going and help give you that feedback and sort of reflect back to you what is working. There's so many times where I've been working with people where they're so down because their energy isn't quite right, they're not losing weight, and that's the first thing, that's what they lead with. This is on like month 2, sometimes month 3, and then they tell me, oh yeah, well this and this and this are better, but they're not even thinking of those things. And so I reflected back to them and I say, okay, but you just told me, let's just go through this. You just told me that you have better focus, you're not craving things, you're eating all the protein, you feel stronger, you're lifting more weights. I mean, the list can go on. And they're like, oh yeah, I guess those are improvements, but they're so focused on the number on the scale, or that's a huge example, but there's other things too. So that's where those kind of weekly check-ins or monthly check-ins or whatever type of situation are in, or if you have a friend that you can talk to with that too, and start looking at things kind of through a different lens, that will really be helpful in keeping you keeping on. So you just have to kind of believe that you're healing, even if it doesn't always feel like it. So you're just going to keep saying that to yourself, right? So, you know, I'm no therapist. I'm no, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but definitely not a therapist. But it's these things that I know I've been through and I still go through. I mean, it still is a maintenance thing that you have to kind of keep up on everything, and it kind of is exhausting. You know, little things trigger or flag, and it feels like sometimes it just doesn't work, you know, and it's really frustrating. So we need to stay in it to win it, as the game says. Chi, you mean like as in energy, Angelique? Life force, yeah, exactly. Yep, we have to stay grounded in it and balance. Yeah. And that all reflects in how your nervous system processes things. And I think I've spoken in here about this before too, but I have spoken a lot on building that resilience in your body so that you can heal faster, more effectively, more efficiently. And then once you get like more optimally healed, then if something else comes in and throws you off your game, you're not completely wiped out. You know, I think that took me years and years. It's like just when I thought I was getting better, which seemed so much better than where I was, then something else would happen and I'd be knocked down and starting over. And I know one of the times on my healing process after being diagnosed with thyroid cancer, I had begged and pleaded after 3 years to get a little bit of T3 medication along my high dose T4 medication, and I got 5 micrograms, and it was like, you can try this, but I don't know if you can stay the course on this. I don't know if you'll be able to be on it very long, but you can try it. And so I tried my 5 micrograms, and it started to make a difference in just 2 weeks time. But then I was recommended to switch to Armor, so the T4 T3 combination, and this is just for my situation. I know a lot of people do really well on that. I was set back an entire year. My tumor markers went up. My TSH went up through the roof. It was bad. It was bad. It went backwards. It took me a year to climb out of that hole. So the thing is, now I've built so much more resilience, and I have better people on board to help me with my medications, that I don't ever have to be afraid of going that far back. And you won't either. And you know, maybe you never were in that bad of a situation, but let's not get there. Let's just keep on moving forward. So my point on all this is like, if I can come out of this, and like I said, I'm not gonna lie, there's still struggles here and there. You know, everybody can. You just have to have the tenacity, the stick-to-itiveness, and that kind of thing. And it doesn't mean that if you can't, doesn't mean you're lazy or whatever. It just means that it's flipping hard, right? It's just hard sometimes. So that's my rant for today. That's about all I got. But I just, like I said, it stemmed from a couple people this week. They're like, I know, I just have to trust the process. This is so hard. I'm so frustrated. I'm not losing any weight. Meanwhile, I'm not even kidding, this one person probably has 10 different diagnoses that are pretty significant. that are affecting her life. And she's frustrated that she's not losing weight. So, but there's like a million other things to deal with. All right, so that is all for today. If no one else has any thoughts or questions, we will sign off for that. Have a fabulous weekend. All right, take care, everybody. All right, bye. Yeah, you're welcome.